time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. Welcome back to another horrible game review. And actually, it's not going to be that horrible this time. And the reason is in the disclaimers. First of all, I do snap judgment reviews. However, this time, I actually got a ton of time with this game. I got 13 hours, and I got to experience everything this game had to offer. But normally, I do just want to point out that the word horrible in the title of this content does not refer to the game or DLC that I'm reviewing, but much more the quality of the review itself. I do snap judgment reviews here. I usually only get about 5 to 10 hours with the game, although, again, I got enough time to play this game completely to its completion. And I also do not give scored reviews to games. I do not believe in scored reviews for games. I think this is one of the most subjective forms of art, and therefore I will tell you the overview of the game. I will tell you what the pros and cons of the game are, in my opinion, as all reviews are, and then I will tell you whether I personally will be sticking with this game past the purposes of this review itself. So with that, let's get into it. I am reviewing Star Wars Squadron. A couple of months late on this one, but it's just the way it is for getting a hold of it. I do want to say that anybody listening to this right now, I'm pretty sure it is still on sale. This game is normally $40, but it is down to about $23 on Steam. And if you have Epic, you probably have a holiday $10 off coupon and can possibly get it for $15. It's worth that. So with that out of the way, let's get into what this game is. Okay, so this game is a in-depth, immersive Star Wars flight combat simulator. So one of the things to differentiate this is you're probably thinking, well, I have Battlefront. I have the Starship Battles in Battlefront. That is very arcadey. Same with like the old Nintendo 64 games. This is not that. This is you are in the cockpit. You don't have a third-person view. You are playing the pilot. You are in the TIE fighter. You are in the X-Wing. And with that brings all these different sort of options to the actual combat, which we'll get into later. The actual game is meant to be kind of a multiplayer experience for the most part. On the multiplayer side, you can take place in dogfights until you level up to level 5, at which point you can take place in fleet battles, which kind of pantomime the thing that they do in Battlefront. Basically what it is it's kind of this seesaw battle with AI opponents and starships where you are dogfighting, but you're actually kind of like trying to take out the other person's ships, protect your own ships, and eventually take out their flagship. They're much longer, more drawn-out matches. And when you're playing on ranked, you don't get to pick which side you are fighting for. The dogfights are just 5v5. And they're also unranked. The only thing ranked is the fleet battles. There are also custom matches available. I will say, even though I said I got to experience everything, I never actually tried a custom battle because not enough of my friends play it yet. I'm trying to work on fixing that. But then there's also the story mode. Now, the story mode is an interesting one. It tells the story of a TIE fighter pilot, two TIE fighter pilots. One of them defects to the Empire while the other one becomes even more loyal to the Empire, and then post the second Death Star destruction when the rebels have become the New Republic and they're trying to finish off the Empire and the Empire have turned into warlords, you end up kind of flip-flopping. You kind of create a character on the rebels and you create a character on the Empire, and you jump back and forth between the two to see the complete story of two rival squadrons: Vanguard Squadron for the rebels, Titan Squadron for the Imperials. The story mode is pretty quick. It's roughly about 8 hours, and I think it's like 14 missions back and forth. And there is not a lot of cameos in it. They tell a very interesting story with completely new characters. You only ever actually see one cameo from the actual Star Wars, and he's a little bit more of a deep cut. Not saying that a lot of people won't recognize him, but he's not like your Luke Skywalker, your Han Solo, or anything like that. In that case, the actual missions, you don't get to like roam around stations. You're very stationary. You move between two rooms, the briefing room and the hangar. In those between missions, you'll be able to have these conversations with different members of your squads, where it's kind of more like they're just talking at you and kind of divulging parts about their history, about their storyline, or making the storyline itself a little bit more deep. So yeah, that's the thing about that is it's very tutorially, which we'll talk about later in the pros and cons, but that kind of sets you up for the multiplayer, which is the dogfighting and the fleet battles. One of the cool things about the actual controls of the ship is that they are very immersive in the fact that you can set up their builds. You actually earn these kind of like weapon upgrade crates, which allow you to unlock different weapon builds. And these, like, you can change the type of lasers your ship fires. You could change their engines. You could change their hull. And you can play with the different settings for the exact kind of build or pilot that you are. In addition to that, in combat, you have a lot of like free reign on how your ship operates. So both the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter have these like variable options that you can switch on a dime. You can switch your power levels to your guns for more damage and longer fire because the guns slowly kind of like deplete and then you have to wait for them to charge back up. At the same time, the Rebels also have shields, which you can actually divert power to the shields to protect your hull a little bit more. Even more so, the Rebels, you can actually make your shields go towards the front or the back to even boost your shields more. Like if you're making a run on a capital ship, you boost all your deflectors to the front so you can take more damage that way. On the TIE Fighter side, you can give these overload boosts to either your engine or your weapons to make you super fast or super damaging in a split-second moment. It's this kind of stuff on the fly that just make this game feel really interesting in the moment-to-moment fighting. I know I've said moment way too many times in this review, but like the actual dogfighting is just phenomenal on that level. Like there's so many things to consider, so many things to think about. So, I mean, that's it. Let's get to the pros and cons. First, the pros. Let's talk about the story first. And by no means is this a perfect game. I want to say that right now. I'm going to give you pros and cons. But I also did not expect this game to be as good as it is for the price that I got it for. And because of that, I'm very excited about it. Now, as far as the story goes, it's only 8 hours, and there's not a lot of like free... Well, that's a con. Let me start off with the pro. They write the hell out of this. They somehow managed to tell a very interesting story of these two like almost lifelong, career-long rivals without making it feel like shoehorned into the Star Wars plot, without making it feel like it doesn't matter. You'll play through the entire thing, and you always feel connected to these characters. Their dialogue is really good, which is something that I've always criticized in Star Wars of the past. And even more so, your squad mates feel fully fleshed out. We'll talk about some of that in the cons, but like they all are very interesting characters, and I was never disappointed with the conversations that I had with them. My next pro I kind of talked about in the just overview, and that is the level of immersion on these starfighters is second to none. I'm so glad that this wasn't an arcadey. This is the simulator that kind of every Star Wars fan has been waiting for. And just the way you can play with your builds, your ships, everything is just great. I love it. And it makes you really... It makes for some really interesting, just white knuckle gameplay in the moment. My other pro, another one I kind of talked about in the overview, I spent quite a bit of time, maybe even hours, tweaking my ships. There is a slew of customizable options with all in-game earned currency. Obviously, they're not making loot box mistakes anymore after Battlefront 2. But it's just so cool to go in there and be able to like tweak my different deflecting shields and different torpedo loadouts and all of that. It's a lot of fun, and it really speaks to a side of Star Wars that just hasn't been touched on yet, and that's what Star Wars needs more of. Them to really look at things that like have been mentioned but haven't been touched on yet, and it really gives new life in a lot of ways to Star Wars. My final pro, I'm being redundant, I know, but is the price. You cannot beat the price. I mean, like I said, I got it for $24 right now on Steam. I know that some of my friends got it for $15 on Epic, and normally it's only a $40 game. It is worth it. You're going to get that amount of fun out of it, which is just really nice and really, really cool, especially nowadays. With that said, let's go into the cons, because this isn't a perfect game, and there are some problems with it. So my first con, I spoke about the story and the developed characters in it. Yeah, they are. They're really developed. The only thing that isn't developed is you. You have no real spoken lines during actual conversations in the ship, though you do get to pick a voice. The voice is only really used for like taunts and in-game words when you're flying around, pinging stuff and whatnot. In the actual conversations, you don't have any spoken lines, and you feel kind of like this cardboard cutout that the characters are just throwing exposition at, which is a little frustrating. Especially with how good the characters are, I would have liked just a little bit of dialogue options, maybe a dialogue tree, and some spoken lines from the character that I played. I mean, you had those voice actors in there to do some lines already. Let them also do some actual speaking line, make your character a little bit fleshed out, which would have been a little bit nicer in my opinion. Even more so, you don't get to walk around this world. You just like click on an option to move back and forth between things, so you really, really just feel like an exposition box that people just pour exposition into. My next con is on the story, and while I've said that this story feels new and fresh and original, on the story part of it, the actual gameplay in the story unfortunately suffers that kind of, this is just a long-winded tutorial for the multiplayer play. Each mission, into like the last 2 or 3 missions, you're flying a specific ship. That specific ship has a specific thing on it that they are trying to show you how to use. And while the missions are still fun and long and have some interesting parts to them, it's still, I couldn't help but feel in the actual missions in the story like, this is just like another way to get me to learn how to use the bombs so that I know how to use them in the multiplayer. Which is a little bit irritating because we're going to talk about a con later that there's not as much multiplayer that should be there. That is. When the gameplay finally starts to open up, allow you to pick ships in certain situations, it's like the last 3 or 4 missions. So you really, it opens up and you're like, yeah, and then there's just nothing after that. I would have liked a few more missions to just like be like free roam kind of craziness. Especially with how well designed everything is. There are cool moments in them too, like one where you have to arm all these old ship cores in a junkyard to booby trap capital ships, and then you have to time the shots right while also dogfighting other ships. There are some really cool set pieces here. It's just they're kind of like hidden in these kind of tutorial sections, which irritated me a little bit. My next con, and this is probably the biggest con of this game, and I am hoping that this con is not a con that sticks around for the next year or two, that this gets support and this changes over the course of however long. But, you have Battlefront 2 right now is just this like masterpiece of multiplayer play in the fact that it has just so many modes, so many different ways to like go in and fight other people. You've got all these different types of like gunfights and mass battles and hero one-on-ones and all sorts of stuff. This game has 2 modes: dogfight, 5v5, straight up, fleet battles. That's it. That is all the multiplayer is right now. And I feel like there is just so many more ways to do this. Like I can think of like 4 off the top of my head that just they haven't done. And I want to see that added to this game. I want this game to get the support because I'm not going to lie. We're going to get to it in the stick to it, but this is probably my favorite competitive multiplayer right now. And so I just want to see this get more stuff added to it because the gameplay itself is really, at its core, is really good. But unfortunately, you get 8 hours of story, then you get 2 modes of multiplayer, and that's it. So we need some more flavor. We need some more variations there. And that's the big one, in my opinion. I think that basically covers it. Let's go ahead and go to the stick with it. Guys, I'm going to stick with this for a while. It'll be a little bit before I get bored of it. The gameplay is amazing. The gunfights are great. There's still a good community here. A lot of people actually playing still, so the wait times are never more than a minute. I'm very happy with that. This is my competitive multiplayer at the current state. And as long as they support this and continue to add to it, I will keep coming back because this is a truly unique experience for anybody playing Star Wars video games out there right now. So that's it. That's my review. Check this out if you feel like it. I hope this helped you out. In any case, you guys can talk to us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link will be in the description below. You can influence this and all of our shows from there. And, of course, as long as you guys keep watching, we will keep making them. See you guys next week.